The Garden Report is brought to you by Prize Picks.
Hey, Buddy Manning here. Welcome to a news edition of the Garden Report. Noa Dalzell alongside, who covers the WNBA for SB Nation. Surprising news today, but something we've talked about for a while. Noa, Boston getting a WNBA team, and Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe reporting that Donnie Wahlberg and Michael Carter-Williams are going to come together to make a bid for an expansion team in Boston. This not another discussed move of bringing the Connecticut Sun up to Boston. So this would be a team in addition to Connecticut, which has been Boston's de facto team throughout their history here. What's your reaction to this news, and how feasible is it that Boston will get in on this wave of teams starting to enter the league?
So a couple things. So WNBA expansion has been rapid over these past few seasons. So last year there were 12 teams. A 13th team is joining next year. 2 teams, Portland and Toronto, are joining the following year. And now, just earlier this week, it was reported that Cleveland was selected as the 16th team. And for a long time, Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, and just the league front office, the messaging was, we're trying to get to 16 teams. Now I think there's so much interest from bids all over the country for a team that they're going to go higher than that number. But it's going to be a couple of years before any of these other teams are involved. And just so just so the viewers know, like, there are so many bids currently in the mix. There's Charlotte, there's Austin, Houston, St. Louis, which Jason Tatum was reportedly involved in. He wants to bring a WNBA team to his hometown, Detroit. So pretty much you name a big city, and there's a bid right now to try to bring a WNBA team there. So this news is really exciting because we haven't really seen any substantive buzz around bringing a team to Boston, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get a team anytime soon here in Boston. It's great to see the names that are involved. Michael Carter-Williams. Obviously, you want people that have both the basketball pedigree and the money, because these teams, their valuations are going through the roof compared to what they were 5-6 years ago. Like the Portland team was $125 million, I believe. Cleveland's $250 million. So already we're seeing, like, if you went to go buy a team 3 or 4 years ago, you were gonna be ahead of your times here financially. But it makes all the sense in the world, just covering the Celtics here, seeing the sports culture in Boston, the momentum of the team last year, playing one game at TD Garden. And right now there's no move for the Connecticut Sun to move here. So it just doesn't make sense to me long term that there's going to be a professional women's basketball league and there's not going to be a team in Boston.
What do you think is more likely, that the sentiment around Connecticut changes to moving up given their facilities, and even a player requesting a trade to get out of there this week after the wave of moves, or expansion like this happening to bring it to Boston?
I don't know. It's hard for me. It would be kind of speculative to say. I mean, Connecticut's in a tough spot. They lost almost every rotation player from last season via free agency or via trade. And the one player that was, one of their starters last year, Marina Maybe, requested a trade, and her trade request was denied. Connecticut's president, Jen Rosati, said that today or yesterday, an article that was kind of circulating today. And I think that's an unusual situation. I mean, I was trying to remember when the last time is a player made known in the offseason they want out of a franchise and did not get that request fulfilled. It's an unusual circumstance. And I think Connecticut right now is one of just a few teams that doesn't have concrete plans to build their own practice facility. They're not in a big market. There are limited opportunities compared to a place like New York, where you're now filling out Barclays Center, from a marketing standpoint. So there's a lot of reasons why it's not somewhere that can lure free agents, and they've turned overseas to try to bring players from overseas to Connecticut. And I don't expect them to be in the mix for championship contention next year. So it's a tough franchise, but they're the only franchise in the country that's owned by an indigenous tribe, the Mohegan tribe. And they have said they don't want to sell. They don't want to move to Boston. So I don't know if behind closed doors, if a certain amount of money might change their minds. It's possible that's kind of all it'll take. But ultimately, right now, they have not said anything to signify that they want to sell. And honestly, from a business standpoint, like, if you're holding on to the WNBA team, this league is booming. Like, I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to sell. And it brings them traffic because they're in a casino. They're in the Mohegan Sun Casino. So you have people coming in, watching the game, you're gambling afterwards, eating dinner. So it's been a traffic flow for the casino from a business standpoint. They just haven't invested in this team the way that other ownership groups have. And there's been some really controversial moments last year during the playoffs. The Sun had to share their practice facility the day before a game versus the Fever with a toddler's birthday party. So these moments that kind of become like lightning rods for online controversy, but really represent a franchise that's behind most others in the league right now. So I would love to see either of those things happen, either the move or a new team, but I don't know that realistically I can see them both coexisting. So I think that if there was a team in Boston, I don't really see a world where there's still a team in Connecticut. It just feels like a little bit of a market overlap.
Yeah, for sure. And you throw in New York there on the other side of that. Is that the biggest reason you have some skepticism about this bid being successful? Or are there other reasons as well?
For me, this kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know anything about this coming into today. I'm going to be speaking with Michael Carter-Williams this week, and kind of we'll have some more reporting on just what the likelihood is, who's involved. Obviously, a big factor is going to be what kind of money you're willing to put in and what kind of resources. Like the Valkyries, they're going to have a state-of-the-art facility starting from day one in Golden State. They're going to be the same ownership group as the Warriors. Already they've sold out season tickets. So each of these teams—
And this will be separate from the new Celtics ownership.
Yeah.
Too,
So I think that there's
the
an element where the continuity with the NBA teams helps. Like with Phoenix, same ownership group, Matt Ishbia bought the Mercury. So you have this kind of overlap, which helps from a resources standpoint. It also sometimes is nice when the owner only has the WNBA team and then you view it as a standalone thing, not as the sidekick to your main venture. So there's pros and cons. But I think that the reason I'm skeptical is more just because there's so many bids. So if you're not paying close attention, you might think, oh my God, a bid, like they're going to get a team next year. In reality, there's a lot of bids. And I've written a lot of these stories. So I can't even count how many expansion bid filed stories I've written this year on SB Nation, because there have just been so many. And so you just got to show that why should the WNBA pick you over the other ones. And I think there are some natural advantages that Boston has. But at the same time, there's going to be that hurdle of the ownership thing, the fact that you don't have an arena naturally, TD Garden's not owned by the Celtics. So there's some logistical things that you're going to have to figure out. I would love if the two teams were owned by the new ownership group combined and all the resources were kind of state of the art, but I don't think that's very likely.
Yeah, go check out Gary's reporting on this. He broke the news earlier today. Noah will be writing about it over on sbnation.com as well. And we'll have more as that develops. So we'd love to have a team here in Boston, and it's been discussed for a long time. And this, obviously, the biggest step toward that yet. There's been a news edition of the Garden Report powered by Prize Picks. We'll talk to you on Thursday after Celtics 76ers starts the second half. Hey, Bobby Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS.